using air, clean air. God lovingly speaks us into being and declares us. Not only that, God speaks an order into being and calls that good. God creates an ecosystem, a system with delicate balance, a place where nothing can exist, much less thrive, without the blessed community we form together through earth, sky, and water. The sky gives us the air we breathe, the earth grants her harvest, the water sustains us day by day. We are created good and to live in community with one another, with all of creation, leaning on one another for day-to-day sustenance and support. The order is what God calls supremely good. The order to our chaos. This is God's intent. How dare we exist without the recognition that our very bodies are made mostly of water. We drink water every day to sustain life. We breathe the air so naturally that to pause for even just 30 seconds requires concentration and practice. And the earth is our home and our sustenance. It's God's will that we, in community, in tandem with our Creator and with every living being, that we work with one another. Is that not so? We live in a time so different from the days when Genesis was penned, so different from ancient times when nowadays it seems like the earth is on life support. When our creative ingenuity has been wonderful and created so many beautiful ways to sustain life, but it has also depleted and polluted resources. The author of Genesis could not have imagined this present moment, and yet the story of our origins speaks in with clarity and purpose. Genesis 1 should be a primary text, reminding us that as parts of the earth DNR, that is, as parts of the earth do not resuscitate, in a time when whole species die off far too regularly because of loss of habitat, and as sea levels rise and storms get worse and whole island cultures are under threat of extinction, when parts of the earth DNR do not resuscitate, we must remember that Genesis 1 calls on us to be God's DNR. That is, God's Department of Natural Resources. This is the universal call that not one of us can ignore. Don't get me wrong, we are all created uniquely. We have a special plan and purpose, created in the image of God to do wonderful things, and our calls can look really different, one person to the next. One is a farmer, another a minister, still another a therapist or government leader or postmaster. But every single one of us, all of us are called in Genesis 1 to share in the work and vision of continuing to order the universe out of chaos. It's our primary role and responsibility as people to bear the image of God and to live in community with one another and with the earth, and to make sure the earth thrives in order and not chaos. We are God's DNR. It's shocking to me how little American Christianity talks about this, especially in our post-industrial world. We seem to pay little mind to this primal command to care for God's creation. In fact, this very text has been used to justify a lack of care and attention that creation so much needs and deserves. Have you heard it argued? Genesis 1 says, "Fill the earth and subdue it." That must mean that we can deplete all her resources as we wish. We're the top of the food chain after all. God wills it. What do you think? How silly to twist ancient words so. Take charge, as our liturgist pointed out to me today. Take charge does not mean to enslave. The plain meaning of the text is abundantly clear. Debate all we want about what the ancients meant by subduing nature. God in this text says that we are created to bear the image of God, and God orders a world where all beings thrive by working together, and God gives us a job, a creative job, of continuing the work of sustaining the earth. This care for the world is our duty at the top of the food chain and our fundamental reason for existence. Without this, the earth would not need us at all. In a time when the earth faces so many DNRs, how shocking that we ignore our call to be God's DNR, Department of Natural Resources, preserving the earth in her delicate balance, preserving order and not chaos, preserving all of that which God calls supremely good. Little children, let's not love with words or speech, but with action and truth. 1 John 3 reads, "Those who keep God's commandments dwell in God, and God dwells in them." The mandate could not be more clear, though the text was written long before smokestacks blew chaos across the currents of Lake Michigan, before the warbler was threatened to extinction because we'd cut down all the trees, before rising temperatures threatened to melt ice caps, causing rising sea levels that could submerge whole island cultures. I wonder why we today are so quick to ignore this mandate when it's never been more critical to take it seriously. We waste our time instead arguing about a 7-day creation. We don't debate its clear mandate for the earth. We just want to know whether dinosaurs could have ever existed. And we've been stuck on that debate for literally 100 years. I looked it up, and the original Stokes trial that started that debate was in 1925. Why aren't we over it yet? Given the radical commands of this text for our lives in response to climate change, that debate seems so much to me to miss the mark, to miss the message, the call, and the commandment of the day. I very much wonder why we are so caught up in it. Why do we miss the critical lesson and drown it in a 100-year-old nonsensical debate? Perhaps we engage this debate to avoid the one that is truly costly, the one that requires us to act. Perhaps we avoid the real issue too, because the mission is impossible. Because if we are all mandated by God to be the stewards of creation, to be the DNR, the Department of Natural Resources, in a time when the earth is on life support, if we are commanded to order the chaos of air pollution that begins so far away from our homes, we have to admit we have no idea where to even begin. If healthy air is a human right, we have a long way to go. The American Lung Association reports nearly 4 in 10 people live in places with unhealthy levels of air pollution. That kind of mission is overwhelming, and answers are far from clear, and so we become overwhelmed. And yet air quality is improving as people monitor and create solutions and demand action. And perhaps this is also the moment to remember that God shows us what to do step by step. God ordered the world with speech and breath, with communication and action, and did so in love. And God worked methodically and meticulously, not solving every single problem all at once, but simply breathing and speaking and creating order where there was once only chaos, one day at a time. And at the end of each day, God saw progress. God sat back and said it was. And when the project was complete, meaning God had created and appointed us to continue in that work, at this point, God looked all around at all of it, and God called it supremely. And there was evening, and there was morning, the 6th day.